And for more, we're joined by Jean-Yves Colin of the Asia Center here in Paris. Thanks for speaking with us here on France 24.
Good afternoon.
What an unusual case. You heard in that report 99% conviction rates in Japan. In this case, it's the big surprise is that he was let out on bail.
Yes, it's a very rare case in Japan, and especially I think it's the worst case for a foreigner to be put in jail like that. So of course, there is Carlos Ghosn's colleague, Greg Kelly, who was arrested the same day as Carlos Ghosn on November 19, but he was released on December. In a way, he was, if I put it like that, the junior of Carlos Ghosn, and he's still in Japan. Last time I heard about him, he was in a hospital because he had some bad health conditions. But I think we haven't seen something like that in Japan for years.
You heard in that report the defense attorney accusing the judicial system in Japan of being a hostage justice system.
Yes, first of all, I would say this new attorney or lawyer for Mr. Ghosn is a rough lawyer. If I make a comparison, he's a bit like a lawyer for the O.J. Simpson's case. So he's going to be very tough, much tougher than the previous attorney, Mr. Otsulu, who was more in sympathy, not in friendship, but in sympathy with the system.
Because the initial strategy was to hire a former prosecutor who could perhaps win over the
that's
courts.
Right.
This time it's more of a defiant approach.
More, I would say more maybe in touch with Carlos Ghosn, more own
personality.
Personality, that's right.
Yeah. Carlos Ghosn, who insists he's innocent and that he's going to clear his name.
Well, nobody knows exactly what is the situation really, because we have, in this case, you have basically three main issues. One issue is related to the false or misinformation of the regulatory body for financial markets. When you don't see the contracts related to Mr. Ghosn, you cannot say much about the content of the contracts themselves. But after being for a long time within the banking system in France, I would say I cannot imagine a president, a chairman, a chief executive officer doing something like that without the help of the legal department, the communication department, and people in charge of drafting the annual report.
So you subscribe to the theory, let's put it out there, Jean-Yves Colin, that he was figuratively thrown under the bus because Nissan was tired of the way that the arrangement with Renault was going.
This is the first issue, and I think the second, and this cannot be done without talking to the regulatory body and external lawyers. The second issue is related to the foreign exchange guarantee, because Carlos Ghosn was paid in yen and he wanted dollar-based compensation. And I think this exchange guarantee could have been made by Nissan itself. And it was done by Mr. Ghosn, but it could have been done by Nissan. And apparently, Nissan didn't lose any money by taking over the contract for a short period of time. So that's the first issue. So I think this issue is not really good either. The third issue...
So this is all about the renegotiation of the alliance between Renault and Nissan?
No. This is more a personal issue related to Carlos Ghosn's compensation.
Right.
The third group of issues, I would say, can be called the abuse of funds by Mr. Ghosn, such as his personal residences in Brazil, France, Lebanon, Japan, the funds he provided to his sister, and the Versailles reception and things like that. Yeah,
there was a big reception after his second wedding. At the Palace of Versailles.
Nobody knows exactly what happened in which circumstances. So I would say at least the three issues I mentioned do not deserve a 4 months jail for Mr. Ghosn. Maybe I understand the prosecutor can put in jail Mr. Ghosn for a few days.
Right.
But not for 4 months or 6 months.
Yeah, because if he posts $9 million bail, or the equivalent of in yen,
it's 1 billion Japanese yen.
He's not a flight risk, is he?
No, and I think most of the documentation needed by the prosecutor or the court are not with Mr. Carlos Ghosn. They are certainly within Nissan or within Renault, but not at Carlos Ghosn's own hands. So Mr. Ghosn is not going to destroy documentation, as it was said previously by the prosecutor. So anyway, now he's going to be under video surveillance.
So just to remind our viewers here, he was the boss through the alliance of both Renault and Nissan, Mitsubishi as well.
Yeah.
And here in France, we already had a prelude to this, which was in 2016, the outrage over his high pay.
Yes.
Which he dodged that bullet at the time. How is this case going to change things in Japan? How are the history books going to say the Japanese see this alliance, but also the way their legal system works?
I think they will be in favor of, in a way, keeping the alliance, maybe with a better balance for the Japanese side, but not to destroy the alliance, because they understand that the alliance is necessary for Nissan. Nissan is now not a small company, but a smaller company versus Toyota than it was 20 years ago. And secondly, it will something which will make the Japanese people uneasy, because they thought the Japanese justice system was fair. And this case demonstrated that the justice system was not that fair. It was known by some specialist lawyers in Japan, but not known by the public opinion. And now it was in all newspapers in Japan, in all TV channels.
And people are debating it.
And people are debating it. And that is not good for Japan. And in a way, it's also not good for the attraction capacity of Japan toward foreign businessmen. I think if you are a French or a US businessman and you are proposed to go to Japan to become the chief executive officer of a subsidiary, you will think twice now. You will be afraid that something wrong may happen. In the past, there was a previous case with another company, a very Japanese company called Minolta, and it was not a good sign either. So there are some steps like that in the recent past of Japan corporate history, which are not very good for Japan.
When Carlos Ghosn is arrested, getting off his plane in Tokyo on November the 19th, we reported on how he had become this icon over the years in Japan. They'd drawn mangas about him. Yeah. He was called Le Cost Killer.
But I think it's also, in a way, our fault in Western countries. So we lived with this story. This story was right, certainly, let's say 5-6 years after the takeover of Nissan by Renault. But after that, it faded away.
Right.
Nissan became part of the alliance, and Ghosn became, if I may say like that, a normal chairman and chief executive officer in Japan. But the story was already finished. This glamorous story was already finished. But we thought in France and maybe in other countries that it was still the same.
Did you personally think that, Jean-Yves Colin?
The story was finished.
Did you realize that, well, this guy, he's been the boss since what, 1999, I believe?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the same Carlos Ghosn as at the beginning. Did you see this coming?
I thought he made a very great job in Japan to save Nissan, and this was done, let's say, over more than 5 years, maybe less than 10 years. And after that, he became a normal chairman and chief executive officer. And of course, when you are designated as a chief executive officer in 1999 and 20 years, 25 years have passed, you changed. That's the strength of power within politics or within economics, I would say. People change.
People change, become, as you say, a normal CEO.
Yeah, with the plus and the minus.
With a big salary, though.
And with a big salary. And do not forget that he's not the only one to have a big salary. There are a group of people around him in France and in Japan who also earn, let's say, a lot of money, and we have a special relationship with him.
Because French public opinion is discovering this holding in the Netherlands for paying.
Yeah, it was known. It was known.
It was known to people who follow closely, but not to the general public opinion.
Yeah, and what was, I think, poorly appreciated in France a short while ago was the fact that Carlos Ghosn became a fiscal resident in Netherlands, not in France anymore, which shows that for part of the public opinion, Carlos Ghosn was not totally a French anymore. He was Brazilian, Lebanese, and partly French, but not completely French and not completely a member of the French establishment.
Jean-Yves Colin of the Asia Center, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much indeed.